What's up, everybody? How are you guys doing? Hope you guys are doing good. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Chris. I ride a 2020 Harley Davidson Lowrider S, and you are watching the Riding Dad channel. Before we start talking about the Lowrider versus the Lowrider S, I need to roll that intro. So let's get that going, and I'll see you back here.
Riding down a YouTube channel, it's the Riding Down a YouTube channel, it's the Riding Down a YouTube channel, it's the Riding Down a
Alrighty, so Lowrider versus the Lowrider S. Recently just got back from a trip where my buddy has a 2020 Lowrider, and I obviously have the 2020 Lowrider S. Feel like this would be a good time to talk about the similarities and differences. So I jotted down a couple of what I feel are important and noticeable differences between the bikes, stuff that you as a rider might care about, or maybe you don't. But let's go through them, and I'm just gonna touch on how I feel about some stuff, and maybe just bring to light how similar and or how different these bikes really are. So colors, you have black and silver with the Lowrider S. And on the Lowrider, you got black, blue, red, and white. They have little differences in like their paint scheme overall, but the majority of the color of the bike, those are your options. The price is going to be a decent option, and you'll see why as we go down this list, why the price is so different. But $14,899 on the Harley website for the Lowrider, and $17,999 on the Lowrider S. Like I said, you'll see when we trickle down how that adds up and how it adds up so quick. All right, so the seat height. Very, very similar, and if you notice in green, I highlighted everything in green that is either identical or so close to identical from a rider standpoint you probably would never know the difference. So 26.5 inches on the Lowrider S, 26.2. You're talking about 0.3 inches, you're never going to notice that. The rake, which for those of you who don't know what the rake is, it's the angle of the forks and the wheel opposed to the frame. So the higher the number for your rake, that means the higher or the longer the forks are going to kick out from your bike. The longer the forks are, the farther away, I should say, the farther away the forks in the front wheel are from the frame, it's going to have more of a tendency to track in a straight line. That's why you see all these like real choppers, stuff like that, pretty far kicked out forks in a front wheel. And the shorter they are, the less that angle is, you're going to have like sport bikes. They're never kicked out far. It's going to increase your flickability of the bike. The ease, how easy it is to toss it into turners and transfer the weight really quick. So 30 degrees on the Lowrider, 28 on the Lowrider S. Very, very small difference. Probably never going to notice it. But if you want the most flickable bike on paper, Lowrider S. 2 degrees though, it is what you think of it. Fuel capacity, dead spot even, which pretty much most of the Softails have a 5 gallon now. There's a couple of exceptions, but most of them are 5 gallon. So weight, again, from the rider standpoint, you probably never realize it. 633 on the Lowrider, 679 pounds on the Lowrider S. Here's where we start to get into some of the price differences on this bike. I am sweating. Florida heat is no joke in this garage, guys. Okay, so they both have the M8 engine, being that they're a newer model on the Softail lineup. The 114 cubic inch versus the 107 cubic inch. I've ridden a 107. I owned a 107 for a while on a Fat Bob, and obviously on the Lowrider S I have the 114. From the seat of the pants, from the rider standpoint, in my opinion, you really don't notice too much of a difference at all. The thing that I noticed the most about it was that the 114 felt a little bit less smooth, not in a bad way, but it was more torquey and had a tendency to be like a little bit more jumpy. The 107 felt almost more of like a linear, smoother roll on the throttle. Still torquey. They're both incredibly good engines, especially from where Harley, especially in the Softail, started. So the 107 just felt a little bit smoother, almost more linear, where the 114 feels like it's got a little bit more spunk to it. It almost feels like a little puppy, like it's always just a little bit jumpy. Lean angle, or the right and the left, 29.6 for the right and the left on the Lowrider, and 30.1 on the right and the left. So you're talking about a 0.5 degree difference in the Lowrider S's favor of lean angle. Again, you're probably never going to realize that. Air filter. All the 114s on the M8 Softails come with Harley's high flow air filter, which basically means if you're to do what Harley calls a stage 1, which is a tune, a exhaust, and a high flow air cleaner, it's one less thing you have to buy. Is it the best air filter out there for performance? No. Typically, nothing directly from Harley due to EPA regulations and some other stuff is ever the best performance you could buy for the bikes, but it's nice knowing that you could do a stage 1 and not have to buy it, and it's something you could chalk up to a down the line purchase rather than an upfront pretty expensive cost, because stuff will start to add up when you are doing a stage 1. And all these stock air cleaners on the 107s, you're going to have to upgrade if you do a stage 1. They are the stock kind of limiting air filter. Brakes is going to be another big factor on why these price differences are so vast for a very similar platform. You're going to have a fixed rotor on the front and rear wheel of the lowrider, and on the front it's going to be a single disc. Both bikes have ABS. It's going to be a single disc fixed rotor. The Lowrider S, you're going to have floating rotors on the rear and front, single on the rear just like the Lowrider. However, you're going to get dual disc brakes on the front wheel of the Lowrider S. So let me talk about the difference between fixed rotors and floating rotors. For those of you who don't know the difference, what it is, basically a fixed rotor is kind of self-explanatory. It's a fixed piece of metal bolted onto the wheel that the brake calipers squeeze against to slow down the rotation of the wheel. A floating rotor means that you have an inner piece that is bolted, hard bolted to the wheel, and then the actual disc that comes in contact with the brake pads that is able to free float, sort of independent from that piece that's bolted onto the wheel. So in short, a floating rotor is supposed to give you a little bit better performance, slightly better cooling for the brakes. They're supposed to not tend to get as hot as typical under increased load pressure, and more even wear from your rotor and your brake pad, because that rotor is allowed to move a little bit back and forth and track, and it doesn't have to be on a solid flat line. So now you could always upgrade a lot of the stuff in the lowrider, and obviously the rotors are something that you can upgrade. So if that is something you want to do and that's the only thing you want to do, you can do that. I'm sure somebody makes kits for a dual disc brake for the lowrider as well. You could do a whole new front end if you really wanted to, but now you're looking at spending a lot more money than you probably would have spent on a stock Lowrider S. Moving on. The seats that come with the bikes are different. You get a single seat with the Lowrider S and a 2-up seat with the lowrider. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Front forks with the bikes are different as well. You're getting your typical standard Harley front forks on the lowrider, and then you're getting inverted front forks on the Lowrider S. Inverted front forks are thought of more of a performance-based mod or option on bikes. In short, inverted forks handle better. Most people doing good performance bikes, especially like sport bikes, I can't think in my head of a single sport bike that has like your typical Harley front end forks. They all have inverted front forks, at least that I can think of. I can't think of any. If you can, let me know in the comments. So Harleys have mids and forward controls, basically where your feet are going to be. You're at your knees, they're either going to form like a 90-degree angle and your legs are going to drop straight down, almost like you're sitting in a chair, or they're going to be kicked out in front, almost like you're up on a lazy boy recliner. The front is obviously called forwards, and then the middle of the bike where you're kind of in a chair position, those are going to be mid controls. Both of these come stock with mids. Both of them you could switch out to forwards. Do people automatically assume that you're talking about a Dyna when you mention the bike name? On a lowrider, sometimes, but for whatever reason, in my experience, not as much. Pretty much no. In a Lowrider S, 100% of the time, in my experience, I have heard that. Unless you're specifically talking to somebody in person and you mention that it's a newer, or you mention the model name and they happen to be on the up and up with Harley models and everything like that. As soon as you say Lowrider S, people go to the golden boy of the Dynas, and they, for whatever reason, just think Lowrider S, Dyna, and that's in my experience. Something that may or may not be important to you is if it will accept a tour pack. And this is just kind of in general. Some of the Harley, like my Fat Bob, they did not make a tour pack for it. There were some other options for extended luggage, but if you want to do a quick release, like it's what Harley calls their hold fast, like they have their hold fast sissy bar, hold fast luggage, those locking and the docking hardware They have a tour pack for it. The Lowrider and the Lowrider S actually use the same exact one. Like I said, it's the same platform physically for like the fenders, well, the rear fender, and the fender struts and the actual chassis of the motorcycle. It's exactly the same for the most part. So yes, they will both accept that. So if that's something you want to do, maybe pop it on for a long trip, leave it in the hotel room when you go out and ride the fun streets wherever you're at. That is an option that you have on both of them. So if you are from California, chances are that you probably know what a club style Harley is, a club style Dyna typically. But if you're not from California, there's probably a good chance that you don't know what it is. I really didn't know what it was too much until I started seeing pictures and I really liked it, and then I started to kind of figure out what it was. So I'll post some pictures up as I'm talking now of what a club style build is. But if you know, you know, and if you don't know, I think you'll realize it as soon as you see it, what style I'm talking about. In my opinion, the Lowrider very easily can be built into a club style build. My buddy Brian, who you've seen me ride with before, has a Lowrider like I mentioned, and he is making it, he's already made most of it, into a club style build. He just got very minor things to go here and there, but it's pretty much a club style build, and the Lowrider S comes stock very close to a full club style build, and very easy to make it a completely done up club style build. On the flip side of that, can you make the Lowrider a typical like classic Harley looking bike? Well, it comes as a classic, in my opinion, a classic Harley looking bike just with some new school style. So yes, obviously. You could even go way more to the other side of the spectrum and do even more with it to make it look like that. However, the Lowrider S, in my opinion, in its stock configuration for what you're looking for, although it could be done, I would say a hard no if that's the ultimate style that you're looking to get from a bike that you're purchasing. I would say if you're looking to get a classic style and you don't care anything about a club style, don't waste your money on the Lowrider S. Go straight to the Lowrider, because you're going to be taking off so many extra things, and you're going to have so many things that you just completely don't need or don't care about on the Lowrider S that you're better off just sticking with the Lowrider and saving your money. Alrighty, the last question I have for both of them. Is the bike badass? Yes. It's an M8 Softail. It's a newer model Harley. They're both killer bikes. In my opinion, you're getting a lot of bike for the money compared to a lot of other Harleys in their lineup. And they both look badass, and they both perform pretty badass, especially for a Softail. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had fun making it. Hopefully I either explained something to you might have never known before, or I just entertained you in some way. Hope you guys are having a good day. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Comment, let me know what you think. Let me know if you have a Lowrider or a Lowrider S, or if you feel I missed any important information regarding these two bikes. Let me know what you want to see in the future as well. I always respond to comments, and I appreciate each and every one of you guys for clicking on the video, and especially for clicking on the subscribe button and turning on your notifications so you never miss one of my videos. As of this video, my upload schedule for at least the next 2 months will be every single Saturday night at about 8 to 9 o'clock p.m. my time in Florida, and also on Wednesday afternoon at about noon. I'm going to be 2 videos a week. Really going to bump up this productivity level. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, have fun, ride safe. Dad out.